All right, section 4.3, follow along on page 252. We're going to be looking at factoring things that are in standard form. And standard form looks like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now for these, we're only going to be looking at when a equals 1. When we get to the next section, we may have other values for a like 5, 2, 3, whatever. But right now, there's not going to be a number in front of this x squared. So let's go ahead and look at example 1. Example 1 says to factor, there's actually a couple of examples here. It says to factor x squared minus 9x plus 20. So if you notice, there's not a number in front of the x squared. We've got 3 terms. So the way you're going to do these problems is you're going to look at your last number, which in this case is 20, and it's a positive 20. And you're going to list out all of the factors of 20. And I usually start off with 1. So 1 times 20 gets you 20. 2 times 10 gets you 20. 4 times 5 gets you 20. And those are just one set of what will get you 20. Notice both of these are positive. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. And you may not have to write this every time, but you could also do the negative forms of those numbers. And what you're looking for is which set of those multiples are going to add up to get you this middle number of negative 9. So if you start adding these, 1 and 20 gets you 21, 2 and 10 is 12, 4 plus 5 is 9. When you get to negative 4 and negative 5, and you add those two together, it gets you negative 9. So your factored form is going to be splitting up the x's, because x times x is x squared, and then putting in these two factors into the right spots. And it makes no difference what order you put these in. If you had x minus 5 and x minus 4, remember commutative property says you can flip two things, multiply together, it will get you the same answer. Now, the easiest way to check your work, you could FOIL it, which we haven't really got to yet, but just look at what you have. Negative 4 times negative 5 gets you a positive 20. Negative 4 plus negative 5 gets you a negative 9. It's real simple to check your work to see if you have the right answer. But the biggest thing is you have to be able to create this. Okay, you may not have to list out all of them. When you get to the one that you need, you can stop, or sometimes you'll be able to think of it, without doing any work. And if you can, that's great. But for the first few, I'd recommend writing them all out. Okay, let's try this one. X squared plus 3x minus 12. Okay, for this one, same thing. We got 3 terms. There's not a number in front of the x squared, so we're going to do the same process. This is what you're going to do for this entire section. Look at this last number. Okay, the last one was a positive 20. This one is a negative 12. The negative is a big part of this question. So we have to think about what factors will get us a negative 12. Well, let's not worry about the negative yet. I'm going to list out just all of my factors of 12, which are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And to get a negative, one of the two numbers has to be negative. So let's start off. Let's say these are negatives first. So 1 times negative 12, 2 times negative 6, 3 times negative 4. But then they could also be the opposite. The negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3 could also get you the negative 12. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did in the last question. We're going to add the two numbers together and see which ones will add up this time to get me a positive 3. Notice how I'm circling the sign along with the number. Okay, so 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11. 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. That's negative 1. That's 11. That's 4. And that's a 1. Well, if you'll notice, none of these add up to get you the positive 3. So this is what is said to be not factorable. And you can put NF if you want to. I'll know what that means if you say it. Okay. And that happens. So if you list out all your factors and you go through the list and you can see that none of those will add up to get you the number you need, then you know that you have a non-factorable statement. Okay. It's also said sometimes to be what's called prime. Because prime numbers, they don't have any factors other than 1 itself. Okay. All right, let's do a couple more. This should be review for you from Algebra 1, but it's been a little while since you've seen this. Let's try this one. Okay, x squared plus 14x plus 40. So, same thing. Look at your very last number, which is a positive 40, and list out all your factors of 40. So 1 and 40, 2 and 20. I just go in order. That way I don't leave anything out. 3 doesn't go into 40, but 4 does 10 times. 5 goes into 40 8 times. 6 doesn't, and 7 doesn't. And then when you get to 8, you've already done that. So those are all your positive forms to get you positive 40. But you also know that 2 negatives can also get you a positive 40 as well when you multiply them. But here's the thing. When you do a lot of these, you know, you're trying to add these together to get a positive 14. There's no way you can ever add 2 negatives and ever get a positive number. So eventually you won't have to write those. But for the time being, I'm going to list all of them out. And you can see that 4 and 10 are the only 2 factors that will add to get you this 14x. Okay, so your factors are x, and then a positive 4 and a positive 10. Again, the order in which you put those doesn't matter. Okay, x plus 10, x plus 4 is the exact same thing. All right, let's do a few more. Remember, you can pause the video and go back and look at these and slow it down if you'd like to. Let's try this one. Okay, x squared minus 5x minus 36. So, if you'd like to, pause the video for a second and try to list out all the factors of negative 36. So when you do that, you get 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. It's a lot of factors of 36. And to get a negative 36, one of them has to be negative, so I'll make these negative first. And again, when you get better at these, you'll understand that when you're adding 2 numbers together, if you want to add and get a negative number, your negative number needs to be a bigger number. Okay, like 1 and plus negative 36 is going to give me a negative number. When I do these, let me list them all out again real quick. If I were to make all of these negatives, all of these will add up to get me a positive number. All of these will add up to get me a negative number. So my answer should come from one of these first 5 sets. Okay, so which set is it? Well, 4 plus negative 9 gets me negative 5, which is what I wanted right here. So my factored form is x, and this is a positive 4, and then this is a negative 9. Again, the order doesn't matter, but you do have to have the 9 with the negative, and you have to have the positive with the 4. So if you swap these, you have to swap the signs with it. Okay. Do a couple more, and I'll let y'all try a few of these on your own. Question E says to factor x squared plus, and it takes me a second to think of one of these, so let's do 20. Let's do that one. X squared plus x minus 20. So same thing on your own. Think about it for a second. Go ahead and write out your factors, this time of negative 20. So you got 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. One of the 2 numbers has to be negative, and if you think about it, we're trying to get a positive 1. We don't see the 1 there, but we are trying to get a positive 1. So when I add these, my bigger number needs to be positive. Okay, just like right here, the bigger numbers were positive, they got you a positive number. So instead of listing out these sets twice, which I could still do, I know that these have to be negative and these have to be positive. Okay, because that will get me a positive answer. If I do the other ones, which if you want to list out still, just until you get comfortable doing it, that's fine. These, when you add them together, will all get you negatives. So which set gets you a positive 1? Well, negative 4 plus 5 gets you that positive 1. So your factored form is x minus 4, x plus 5. Okay? Remember, check your work. It doesn't take long. Negative 4 times positive 5 is negative 20. Negative 4 plus 5 gets you a positive 1. You know your answer's right, so you can move on. All right, one more. Okay, say we had x squared minus 11x plus 28. So list out all your factors of 28, which are 1 and 28, 2 and 14, and 4 and 7. Those are the only 3 sets. Now, remember, with 28, it's positive, so they're both positive or they're both negative. Well, I'm trying to get a negative 11. So if I add these 3 sets, all of those are going to get me a positive answer. Okay? So I got to think about the negative versions of all those, which these will all add up to get me a negative number, which is what I want. I want a negative 11. Well, these two are what add to get me a negative 11. So those are my 2 factors, x minus 4, x minus 7. Check your work. Negative 4 times negative 7 is a positive 28. Negative 4 plus negative 7 is a negative 11. What you have is correct, and you are done.